Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So today's video is going to be showing you the process of how I'm creating some 18th century hand-stitched stays from a historical pattern from Jill Salen's Corsets book. And I have already started the process. I've actually hand stitched all the boning channels already because I actually wasn't planning on filming this process. I started it towards the end of my pregnancy a few months ago. Set it aside for a long time, obviously, when I had my baby, and then I finished my shoes. Check out my shoemaking video if you haven't already. So I did go ahead and finish stitching all of these boning channels. You can see they're all stitched by hand and they definitely have quite a rustic look. So let's jump right into the video. Okay, so I'm starting out by marking the placement of the eyelets on the center front panels. And now I'm using two different awls to poke my holes. One is a sharper awl and then one is a wider awl. And sewing those in with a whip stitch. And that's what it looks like when they're almost all done. And now they're all finished. And also the eyelets for the strap. Now I'm using synthetic whalebone for this, and I'm just cutting it with my kitchen scissors and using a file. It was a little tricky to get in these horizontal bones, but I eventually managed. Now in some of the areas I accidentally sewed through the intersections, so I had to pick out those stitches before inserting my boning. Now all my panels are boned, and now I have to sew down the seam allowances flat, and I'm using a herringbone stitch. And that's what they look like when they're finished. And this is the funnest part of stay making, when you get to whip stitch the panels together. And that's what it looks like when they're all whip stitched in. And that's what the beautiful messy inside looks like. Now I'm using chamois leather and cutting out strips to bind over the gutters of the seams. And just stitching those in place. And that's what it looks like when they're all in place. Now I'm using more strips of the same leather to bind the edges of the stays. And so I'm first sewing the pass on the wrong side of the stays. And that's what it looks like when it's half sewn. And now I'm going in and sewing the right side down. And there we go, that's what it looks like when the binding is finished along the top. And I tried two different techniques for finishing off these edges. This one turned out to be neater. Now I'm just cutting in the tabs. They're all cut and ready to be bound. Using the exact same method as before, first sewing around the wrong side, And now sewing it down on the right side. And that's what it looks like when it's finished. And now we're going to add in a nice lining to cover up all this messiness, and I opted to use some silk for this. And so I'm just cutting out pieces to roughly fit the area. And then I'm folding in the outside edge and pinning as I go along. So first starting with the center front. Now I'm just sewing that down. And so I've got it partly in place and basted along that raw edge there. Now it's time to work on the tabs. This is just something you have to do as you go along, only cutting the area for one tab at a time to avoid fraying. And there, now I just need to add the center and now the strap. And I opted to bind this seam with an extra strip. And now it's time to put them on. I first waxed my stay cord to make it easier. Lacing it up kind of takes a long time. All done. Okay everybody, so I'm back with my finished stays and this is the final result. Front, side, back, and the other side. Okay, so what do I think of these stays? To be honest, I don't particularly like them. I don't really see myself wearing them too much. It's not so much because of the type of stays they are as the fact that they don't fit properly. And I'm not gonna blame myself for that because this was just a fun project that I started when I was towards the end of my pregnancy. And so I obviously could not do any mock-up or fittings. And I was going off of my best guess of what my post-pregnancy measurements would be. As I learned more about the 1790s silhouette, it gives more of that Regency look. In fact, I think these stays could be worn under a Regency gown. It would give much the same effect as actual Regency stays because it has such a low cut front and it really does push the bust upward and create that like kind of shelf bust look. And in a way, I almost think it gives more of a similar silhouette to a bra, especially when it's worn under a shirt. It seems to produce less obvious lines under a shirt than another corset. I will show you clips of what I'm talking about here. So in that sense, it's good. And if this was a better fitting pair of stays, I think I might really like them. But I don't particularly like front lacing things, unless perhaps if it had a stomacher underneath, then it would give more support. And I also really don't like having to lace it up every time I put it on. I really want to try out maybe some zipper stays like Mariah Patty, or even something with a busk, a split busk opening, just something to make it quick and easy so that these could be worn every day with a minimum of fuss. Okay, so I'd like to get more into the fit issues. The main thing that I don't like about the fit is that it's too short. Now, keep in mind that I think 1790 stays were supposed to be a little shorter waisted than other eras of stays, but I am very long waisted. My waist is down here, and so I really think these could come down much lower. And even in terms of just what I like and what makes me feel comfortable, especially just having had a baby, I could really use more tummy support. And in fact, because these end so short, they almost like push your tummy out a little more than if you weren't wearing anything. And they also have a lot of pressure right here, right where your stomach is. I had heartburn the first time I wore these, and I'm pretty sure it was because of these. I normally never get heartburn. It's almost less comfortable than, you know, a corset that has more waist restriction in that sense, because all the restriction is just right on your diaphragm and your stomach. Okay, so to wrap things up, I would definitely like to make a similar pair of stays to these in the future while correcting the fit issues and coming up with a different type of closure that is quicker and easier to put on for me. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave your comments and questions below, check out the accompanying blog post, which will be linked in the description, and subscribe to my channel for more historically inspired sewing. Bye!